Hello and welcome to Coffee with Carrie. I had a poll in my community section recently. It was about money in general and sharing expenses in particular. 211 people responded. 76% of the respondents said that financial stability is very important in a partner. Now, in a separate poll, it was pretty evenly split when I asked how people should divide or handle expenses in a relationship. 30% said through a joint account. 30% said couples should split things 50-50. And this poll alone lets me know that we're not all on the same page as we enter relationships when it comes to money and finances. I know, what a sexy conversation, right? I know it's not, and it can be a chemistry killer to come right out and say, hey, let's talk about money now, especially when most people don't like to talk about money to anybody and in the first place. Makes a lot of people uncomfortable. Personally, I don't mind. I think it's important to talk about money and everybody's opinion on it when you're in a relationship with someone. And it should happen before you make a commitment. What do they say? Talk about it early and often. So around 38% of divorces are due to financial reasons. So there's another obvious sign you should be getting on the same page before tying the knot, moving in together even, or whatever type of commitment you're going to be making. But how do you do that? How do you bring it up? What are the important things you should be looking for or should know about this person, financially speaking? If that's at all interesting, I hope you'll stick around because that's what's on the agenda. If you're new here, I'm Carrie. I'm a matchmaker and a dating coach. There isn't a lot of things that I'm uncomfortable talking about, so let's just delve right into this one. I think it's important and I think it can only help to have the conversation. People grow up differently with very different attitudes and relationships with money. I saw a psychologist on TV talking about how we're influenced by the messages we receive in our childhood around money. It was part of what really made me want to make this episode. But the relationship you develop with money was imparted to you and learned in your childhood. That means by the time you're merging your life with another person's and forming a committed romantic relationship, you've had a a much longer relationship with money. So you've got to ask yourself, in your family home, did you constantly hear people saying, do you think money grows on trees? Or what do you think, I'm made of money? We can't afford that. Oh, I'm sorry, but we don't have enough to buy that right now. Things are really tight this month. Or was the messaging at your house one of plenty? Were there generous birthdays and holidays? Were there family vacations? Were there new cars in your garage? Was there talk about savings? Did you have a savings account as a kid? Did you have an allowance? Even just laying out those two different upbringing scenarios, you can see where people would have trouble navigating differences in their attitudes around money. If one came up one way and one the other, you're going to be looking at this very differently. So when should you bring up conversations about money in a new relationship? And when is too soon? Well, money does come up on the first date, actually. The question of who's paying. I have episodes about that if you need more information on how I coach my clients. I will share that most women think that the man should pay for the first date. What happens after that is up for grabs, but the first date, women appreciate the chivalry of the man picking up the tab for whatever they're doing, if there is one. But after that, things aren't always that cut and dried. A lot of people then agree that the person who did the asking should do the paying. Did the asker use the words, my treat, to make that clear? And if you'd like to take someone out for lunch or whatever, and you don't want there to be a question about who's paying, you could always ask by saying, I'd like to take you to lunch sometime, rather than, would you like to get lunch sometime? That doesn't leave much room for speculation or concern on the other person's part. I want to take a minute here to welcome Tabu, a new partner to the channel. I know there are women here, like myself, who aren't currently in a relationship. What I learned is that there are repercussions for mature women who aren't maintaining an active sex life. And that's why I chose to partner with Tabu. Their mission is to make sexual self-care feel as natural as our skincare and exercise routines. The founder of Tabu partnered with gynecologists, urologists, and pelvic floor physical therapists in order to create a truly gorgeous line of tools, not toys, to help maintain sexual well-being. The Golden Hour Kit, it includes everything you need to help address common symptoms, including dryness, low libido, a lack of body confidence, stress, things that often come up as our bodies go through very normal hormonal changes. The name isn't encouraging us to keep quiet, and that's why I'm not. We have to have these conversations with one another. So take a closer look at these really glamorous tools. Just check out the link in my description box below and make sure you use the code CARRY10 to get your 10% off when you take this first step to prioritize your sexual health. And remember, as my own mother likes to say, use it or lose it. They know that you're picking up the tab. The experts advise that if you can normalize talking about money early on and include it in your everyday conversations, it's less likely to get awkward later. But even at this first date stage, things aren't always so straightforward. Different generations have different ideas on this even. People in same-gender relationships obviously can't fall back on the old 1950s dating rules where the man always pays. And some people just prefer to split the cost of a date in half, no matter who asked, because that's how they've always done it. So is this first date going to be awkward? Well, it doesn't have to be. Here's one way that you can figure out what to expect. My research came up with a strategy, which was to ask ahead of time. Maybe even a text. Not a call, not in person, but just a text like this. Can't wait for dinner on Friday. Just wondering, do you usually like to split the check or have one of us pick it up and then maybe take turns? I'm happy to do it, however, trying to avoid the check dance, LOL. If you're comfortable with that, I'm comfortable with that. If not, I always recommend to my male clients to just pick up the tab on the first date. It's generous, it's masculine, and it's an act of kindness. If you are all those things, you're a thoughtful person, show it by making that first move. For my female clients, I recommend that they don't have that expectation and that they offer to share in paying the bill. Just straightforwardly ask, would you like me to share in paying for the bill? And you know what? I prefer that word share rather than the word help personally. Now be prepared for a sure, that would be great. But if you find that you're with someone who's being really generous, I always ask my gals to just double check one more time and say, are you absolutely sure? And then of course your gratitude should kick in and you'd want to voice your appreciation and say, oh, that's so nice of you. I really appreciate that. Thank you. It was a really great dinner. Okay, first date handled, and perhaps even a clearer idea of how you might be splitting things as you move forward, getting to know one another. Not clearer? Okay, how to bring up money when you're dating somebody new. Well, we always talk about wanting to share values with the person we're partnering with, and how we spend money and save money is certainly a part of their values. In the same way you're learning about their other values, their family, free time, spirituality, money's going to come up, and perhaps not even by asking directly. Maybe it's just really casual and it looks something like this. So are you saving up for anything fun? So where did you want to travel next? Both of those are great getting to know you and your values topics. You only need to read between the lines of the answers to start figuring out a person's relationship with money. And that's really all you need to be doing in the first couple of dates. You don't need everything laid out for you. You don't need to know this person inside and out after a date or two. If you find that you're uncomfortable bringing up anything that relates to money, just let things unfold really naturally. Now, if you find that you're uncomfortable bringing up anything that relates to money, just realize that you're stopping yourself from doing that because you think talking about money is taboo. And if you're not talking about it, they may read that it makes you uncomfortable, and they probably won't bring it up either. And just a reminder that at this early stage, it's not about judging. It's really just an information-seeking mission. You're trying to get a view or a vibe about who this person is and whether your goals and your lifestyles are going to be compatible. I'm also thinking that it would be helpful if we look quickly at the fact that money stuff, spending, overspending, saving, or thriftiness isn't always what it appears to be at first glance. Sometimes what looks to be purely about money and finances can be about deeper issues, manifesting in some other way. I think it's important to be on the lookout for certain qualities in a person who you're just getting to know. Is there a lack of generosity? Is there stinginess? And on the flip side, there are people who value stuff more than actual people, and people who have gifts as their love language, something else to keep in mind. There are people who spend money perhaps by shopping to fill emotional holes. They're sad or they're lonely, and they can find some temporary relief from that by making purchases. So just be aware of these things and be paying attention. That's important. So if in the early stages you are paying attention, over time you're going to have many behaviors that you've witnessed to help you in understanding what this person values and what they think is worth spending money on, what things they think are a complete waste of money. Now, if you're comfortable asking questions, then by all means do. See if you can gauge what's important to this person. And if neither of these things is working for you, neither of those two approaches, then just wait till you have to start planning a wedding and agreeing on what things should cost and where you should save and scrimp and where you should splurge. I think that if you've gotten to that point and don't know much about each other's relationship with money, you should probably schedule a little sit-down conversation. Something between the two of you. A conversation where the two of you sit down with a financial advisor maybe, which is of course always an option at any stage of a relationship. If you are planning on having a little sit-down powwow to discuss finances, just make sure you let the other person know what's on the agenda for the conversation. You never want to surprise somebody with something that makes them uncomfortable. And if you've gotten to this point, maybe being uncomfortable is what you're seeing. Sure, casually mentioning that you have some student loans and maybe a smattering of credit card debt, plus some questionable outstanding medical bills. That doesn't seem very appealing. But honesty is the best policy, especially if you're at the beginning of a relationship. I think it's also important to figure out who has what jobs when it comes to the bills and how you'll be dividing or combining finances and who handles investments, who handles future monies. In the same way that you talk about dividing chores and household tasks, these things have to be talked about as well. And it's best to have these conversations during the dating stage rather than once you're in the middle of a relationship or have tied the knot. Like everything else, this is about communication. And hopefully you've chosen somebody with whom you can communicate really well, because if not, money might not be your biggest problem. And communication is huge. With a partner, you should be able to talk about anything, and money is definitely something. I hope you found that interesting and or helpful. If you did, hey, check out this episode here and give Mom a thumbs up before you leave. Hit that subscribe button. It warms my heart. I look forward to seeing you back here again soon. And until next time, thank you and have a good one.